the feedback that we get, where some other companies might receive that and see it as a complaint, and someone's angry about what they've received. Our customers are so gracious with what they tell us and how they speak to us. A lot of the time they're telling us because they genuinely want us to do better. Our department is one. We are the same team, and then we just have the different specializations. So we have our customer happiness team that can concentrate on just helping customers. And the CX side of things, in my team specifically, we're trying to pull out what conversations are happening, understanding what customers are saying, how they're feeling about those different things, and trying to turn that into that insight that feeds the rest of the business.
Welcome back to How to Love a Customer, the show where we dive into the wild, wonderful, and sometimes downright weird world of customer experience. I'm Mikhail, co-founder and CEO here at Chattermill, and in each episode, I talk to the people behind great brands who know that customer interactions, even the messy ones, are the moments of truth. And today we have a very special guest from one of my favorite brands, in the world, and someone joining us from literally the other side of the world, Jordan, who's Director of Customer Experience Operations at Who Gives a Crap. Jordan, welcome to How to Love a Customer.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Other side of the world, but I feel like we're pretty close together, working together for a little while now. So
Yeah. So just to clarify, that Jordan is joining us from Melbourne, where Who Gives a Crap is based, and it's I think somewhat rare example of a consumer brand from Australia that has taken over quite large portions of the world. I'll let Jordan you talk a little bit about Who Gives a Crap for people who don't know. For me, I've been a loyal customer now for a couple of years at least, if not more, and we've obviously worked together in the other way around, where Who Gives a Crap has been a customer of Chattermill. But do you mind just giving people who maybe are not familiar a little bit of an insight about what Who Gives a Crap is?
Yeah, so Who Gives a Crap? We are a paper product business, so toilet paper, kitchen towel, tissues, dream cloths. We have a whole bunch of different products that we offer, and largely our business has been through our website, and we're just starting to move into the retail space, popping up in grocery stores in the UK, US, and Australia, obviously. Something that's probably a little bit different to how other companies work for us is that we're a profit for purpose business. So essentially every dollar that we make and profit is a greater amount that we can donate towards our wash partners, clean water, sanitation and hygiene projects around the world. So we are driven by making the people and communities around us better, which I think is a nice way for people to feel good when they're doing good.
Yeah. I think it's such an interesting case study, because you hear we're a paper company and you just think maybe like The Office, right, and the paper company from the show or something like that. But I think Who Gives a Crap is kind of the exact opposite. It's like a very exciting product, very sort of innovative, even though like it's not a space where you necessarily like envision that. And with a very exciting brand as well, very sort of, I don't know how you would describe your sort of brand personality, but even the name itself is something that a lot of companies would maybe not be comfortable with.
Yeah, there's a little bit of tongue in cheek in how we brand, and it's a really good way to kind of break down some of the barriers when we're talking about what we do. Some people can find it a little bit awkward, I guess, talking about toilet paper that they might be using. It's not necessarily something you compare with your friends. Like you might talk about how you prefer this phone brand to another, or a laptop or something like that. It's a really nice way. Our branding is a really big part of our business as well, the way we speak and really owning that kind of awkwardness that comes along with what we do. It's kind of a badge of honor, and we try to really claim it. A little bit of quick wit here and there, some punny jokes around the office about toilets and fart gags. Makes it a fun place to live.
No, and I think that's why a lot of people love the brand as well. It's like something that like kind of otherwise would be boring and something you just buy in a grocery store and forget about becomes like a little bit more exciting. Awesome. And Jordan, before we dig a little bit deeper into that and the story that you bring, I always like to get a little bit more like the background of the guests here on how to help customers. So do you mind telling our listeners a little bit about your personal kind of journey into customer experience and kind of how did you get into the field, and maybe a little bit about your role at Who Gives a Crap as well?
Yeah, sure. So I've listened to some of your other guests, and it's probably a little bit similar to mine, where it wasn't necessarily by design that I ended up here. When I first started university studies, I picked up a part-time job answering emails in the customer service team, working within a startup. I found myself not being a very great student because I was spending less and less time in the lectures and more time in the office, working in that startup environment where there's always lots of opportunities, there's things going wrong or new ways of doing different things. That's the sort of stuff that I found really exciting and I was drawn to. The university kind of theory and that sort of thing fell away, and I spent more and more time in the customer service team, answering emails, answering phone calls. And through that, being the first person in that startup customer service team was kind of able to create roles for myself along the way, moving from being the person responding to emails to being the person that kind of connected customers and what customers were saying to everyone else around us. So the first company, I sat on a desk straight across from the co-founder and was reading emails and saying, what about this? What can we do here? And having those conversations back and forth. And that's where I kind of got hooked, being able to see those problems and take opportunities and do things differently to make it better for our customer. And then moved into other businesses where, again, sort of the startup theme, where there's lots of opportunities, lots of conversations going on about how to do things better. A company called Deliveroo was launching in Australia. You probably know about that one. So being part of the team that launched the brand into Australia was really awesome, and looking after that kind of live operations side of things with customers and restaurants and the delivery people out on the road. All of those being our customers in different ways and how they connected or sometimes conflicted with each other was really interesting to me as well. And then it brought me to Who Gives a Crap, where a lot of my day is still connecting the customer to the rest of the business, turning that data and insight that we have in our team into something that's useful for the rest of the business. I've been with the company for almost 7 years now, and there's been a lot happened in those 7 years. There was a thing called the pandemic in between. So people may remember it, which was crazy for our business. In a lot of ways, the pandemic was kind of good for business for us, and we experienced this really rapid growth and explosion of new customers and people finding out about us, which was awesome. And then there were some challenges with those things that we were able to deal with, but they did really stretch us and required us to find new ways of doing things so that we could still deliver us on what our customer needed. After about 20 years or so of working in those customer service and customer experience types of roles, I'm still here. I'm still loving it. There's always another opportunity and a new challenge coming tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful thing about working with customers is it never is, Jeff Bezos says like they're always delightfully unsatisfied or something like that. And this is a problem that never gets solved. Which I think you can be very pessimistic about, but the people on this show tend to really enjoy that challenge. Jordan, I wanted to ask kind of a couple of, because it's such an unusual, let's say, space, right? Like you don't talk a lot to companies that maybe compete directly with you here. I want to ask a couple of things just to give our listeners maybe a little bit of a deep dive into your space. So first of all, it's such a kind of, in one sense, like it's such a crowded space, right? A lot of people don't even think about kind of what, especially toilet paper. I know now you're doing a lot of other products as well. But what toilet paper to buy, they just grab whatever is the cheapest in whatever supermarket they kind of frequent, right? Or maybe not necessarily the cheapest, but whatever is somewhere on the shelf. how does customer experience help you guys kind of stand out? Again, you don't necessarily kind of even think about the customer experience from your toilet paper supplier, right? So how does that actually work?
Yeah, so I guess it is a crowded space. There's other companies that are significantly bigger than us and more established. People have grown up using a particular product in their family home when they were growing up, and it's just what they know. It's what they go to. So our branding is a really big part of that, and just getting our name out there into those people who may be moving out of home or looking for something different because they're, for whatever reason, they're not satisfied with their existing product. Cost is definitely part of it. Price sensitivity is definitely a thing. There are some people that would prefer to spend money on other things in their life, and toilet paper would just be their kind of budget option. And different families have different budgets, and all those sorts of things come into it as well. What we try to differentiate ourselves on is the purpose side of our business as well. So helping to stop deforestation is a really, really big one for us. And the reduction of plastic in the supply chains is a really big thing. And I think more customers are becoming more aware of those sorts of things. And that's something that they'll use when they're weighing up against someone else. And our purpose, what we donate to, our mission of providing access to clean water and sanitation and hygiene to everyone in the world, essentially, is a pretty big, hairy, audacious goal. It's something we're really keen to do and get there, and however we can get there. But I think, again, that's where customers are making more informed choices of the business that they will spend their money with. You've got lots of other options out there. If there's a company who does something that you feel like you can trust and you can believe, and there's something that kind of lines up with your morals or ethics, more than likely than not, if everything else is equal, you'll choose that other option. And that's where we're trying to get to, giving people other options, because, yeah, they might not have thought about it, but if you see our product in the retail stores or online, it will catch your eye. It's pretty funky colors and designs. It starts the conversation with that brand name that you were talking about before. People stop and think about it. And hopefully we get them to pick up a pack and buy it.
I wonder if you could give our listeners maybe a little bit of a sense, like what kind of feedback you get from people. I imagine, there is obviously like a standard e-commerce side of the business with, delivery challenges, orders getting misplaced, like things like that, right? But is there also kind of a lot of feedback that comes in about the product itself, and has that ever, let's say, like helped, in terms of product innovation or, just generally working on the product?
Yeah, absolutely. We do get lots of feedback. The interesting thing about what our customers are telling us is generally it's not actually a complaint. The feedback that we get, where some other companies might receive that and see it as a complaint, and someone's angry about what they've received. The customers that we speak to, and talking a little bit about what I said just before, that kind of purpose of what we stand for and what we're trying to achieve, our customers are so gracious with what they tell us and how they speak to us. A lot of the time they're telling us because they genuinely want us to do better. It's not because they're trying to complain or getting their money back. It's more that they believe in what we're trying to do and they want us to help. They want to help us to get there. There have been some pretty interesting stories, and maybe we cut the recording here, and I can tell you some off air. But it's a very personal product that we have. It's a very intimate thing that you might be doing from day to day, and people are very gracious in how they speak to us and what they're telling us to hopefully make the product better.
I think people always underestimate how much like people actually care about what they buy and wanting this, whatever they buy, to be better. Especially, I think, with the new innovative brand, the type of people who kind of give you their time and their money, they're actually a lot more passionate usually than your average consumer. Awesome. And then kind of one other question I had, Jordan, was you mentioned a little bit that like you were starting to sell through the retail channel as opposed to direct to customers, right? And that's actually how I buy my Who Gives a Crap product. I buy through a company called Ocado here in the UK. How does that change your approach to customer experience? I guess with the direct customers, you always had this direct relationship. You know who your customers are. You have their emails. They have your email, and so on. How does that change in a world where you are selling through the big kind of retailers?
It's a different beast. I mean, the website and subscription offering that we have online is our bread and butter. It's where a lot of, or most of our business exists at the moment. We see retail as a really important opportunity for us to grow our impact. Ultimately, the more we can sell, the more we can donate. Coming back to that has been our main driver to challenge those bigger established brands and have a greater impact on the world around us. So we do lose some visibility, that's for sure. We do rely on the relationships that we have with our account managers and the people at the supermarkets and the grocery stores. We have got really good relationships with those teams, but there is some information that we just can't access. In saying that, because we have our established website and online side of things, there are some pieces of information that we can transfer across. So talking about the US, for example, we know that cities like LA or New York or Seattle, they all behave a little bit differently. We know kind of down to the postcode or zip code where our products sell really well, which products sell really well in those postcodes as well. So we know to an extent in the UK or the US or Australia where our products are already popular. And then we can know the kind of, I guess, the more generic pieces of information or trends or tidbits of information that we get from retail in general of where you are on the shelf is really important. The price point is really important. We do lose a little bit of that experience data, but we cheat a little bit as well, I guess. Anyone who works for us, if they're going into the supermarket or down to their local grocery store, they have to be our customer as well. You tell them, go walk down that aisle, see what's happening. How full is the shelf? Does it look presentable? Who are we next to? Take a photo so we can see has the merchandising been set up in a way that we would like. And that's been really useful for us, kind of being our own customer. We've highlighted some things like the boxes being stacked into the shelves. They were tearing in a way that we wouldn't want them to be torn. So we were able to go back to the production team, figure some stuff out with the supply chain, reconfigure the packaging so that when they went out onto the shelves next time, they looked exactly as we were wanting them to look. So we do leave some information, but there is kind of universal truths that we try to apply as well.
Do you find that people who buy in retail come to you with feedback, with issues, complaints, things like that?
We don't have as many. We have had some, but it is very much the exception. Yeah, I think a lot of the customers who buy from retail stores or grocery stores would go back to their retail grocery store and say, I've had this problem, whatever it may be. We do know from our website experience, though, the complaints that we get around product is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. So we're very confident in the product, and we're not expecting there to be too many in retail. But in saying that, we're not kind of closing our eyes and ears and pretending nothing goes wrong. We're just trying to make sure that we're very, scientific about how we find out those things and work with the account managers and that sort of thing through the partnerships we have.
Awesome, Jordan. So let's maybe switch gears a little bit and talk about the story that you bring us today. And we've discussed it a little bit before we started recording, and there's actually a couple of different stories we wanted to touch upon. But let's start with the first one. Do you mind telling us what happened and what made it one story that you will never forget?
Yeah, so this is a little bit more of a personal or human story, I guess, rather than CX specifically. But this is a story of how we lost a customer in kind of a good way, I hope, anyway. So we had a customer who was purchasing from us for just over 4 years. And circumstances in his life changed, and he needed to move into an aged care home. So when he moved into that new home, he wouldn't be purchasing from us. The facilities would be taking care of the toiletries and that sort of thing at the home. So through our customer happiness team, we have people responding to the customers and reading those things and picking up on where we can maybe make something in someone's life just that little bit better. There are some things that we don't get into, it would be inappropriate, but we saw that this would be a nice opportunity to kind of make a transition into a new living arrangement for our customer just that little bit nicer and show appreciation of him being a customer for this amount of time. So there's a little bit of back and forth. We found out some more information, and our customer happiness team, I guess they put their hand up and said, we've got this customer and we want to do something really nice. We've got some ideas. And then the Slack thread just blew up. So many people from around the company were like, let me help. I want to do this. How about this idea? And it kind of just grew into this really nice and organic kind of moment of goodness, all-round goodness. From other companies' perspective, we've lost a customer, just move on to the next one, but we wanted to do something a little bit nice. So there was some welcome gifts that we sent across. Our CEO, Ham, wrote a letter to this customer saying, thank you for being a customer with us for this amount of time. And it just became a nice moment of how our company is more than just making money, and going back to that kind of purpose that we have and what we talked about, making the communities around us better and helping. We helped this one customer, hopefully in that transitional period for him, feel a little bit nice about what was happening, and show our appreciation in that way.
I'm surprised you say it's not a customer experience story. For me, it's like it's a perfect customer experience story, because I guess it starts with just like, even like how you found out that this is the reason for a lot of companies it would be like subscription cancelled, customer churn, that's it. We don't know more than that. So in this case, maybe to just dig into it a little bit, did the customer tell you themselves, or was it like a part of the process for you to ask like what happened? Why was subscription cancelled?
So it was a family member who got in contact with us first to explain that this customer was moving out of their house and to cancel their subscription. And in that initial email, they wrote some information in there that we could understand without going into details, obviously. But we could pick up what was happening, and then our customer happiness team member clicked that there was an opportunity for them to do something quite nice, and they just asked a couple of questions.
Which is the second big point with that. The second big point for me is that you even have a customer happiness team. That a toilet paper company has a customer happiness team, and so that is amazing. We're working here at Chatbot to work with a lot of companies that do have those teams, starting with Zappos, who I think kind of like maybe invented this approach in many ways. But so can you just, Jordan? I'm sorry if I'm gonna go through like every little detail of this because I love this stuff so much. So what does a customer happiness team do, and how is it different, or is it part of the customer experience? Like, is it the same, one and the same? It's just the name for customer experience. Tell us a little bit more about the team.
Yeah, so our customer happiness team is a part of our overall customer experience department. So they're the team members who will be speaking directly to our customers, playing a really important role as our voice. They're our people that are interacting with our customers day in, day out. We work really closely together, the customer happiness team and the CX side of things. We are constantly talking about different things. We support each other. Can you help me understand this? Or can I help you do this in different ways?
And so the customer happiness team is kind of the frontline, and customer experience essentially becomes like, thinking about how do we improve customer experience. right? Because in a lot of companies, it will be one and the same terminology.
Yeah, so our department is one. We are the same team, and then we just have the different specializations. So we have our customer happiness team that can concentrate on just helping customers. And the CX side of things, in my team specifically, we're trying to pull out what conversations are happening using a particular tool. You may have heard of it called chatbot. Understanding what customers are saying, how they're speaking, how they're feeling about those different things, and trying to turn that into that insight that feeds the rest of the business. So same teams, but different specializations within it.
Yeah. No, that is amazing. And then so next, I'm interested in kind of, why do you think this person, this customer happiness team member, kind of was interested in kind of like making this an issue, right? Like, is it part of a culture? Is it part of kind of like some sort of playbook that you have for that team, or just like an amazing one-off person that happened? All of the above, kind of like, tell us a little bit about like how these things kind of happen in practice.
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of the above, what you said then. We do have amazing people. It's not just one amazing person, but our whole customer happiness team are amazing people, some of the nicest, genuinely nice people that you'll ever meet in your life. The culture of our company and the values that our company was founded on play a really important part of that as well. Speaking of, again, coming back to the mission of our company to contribute to communities around the world, this person, the customer, is part of a community that we want to help as well. So it really comes back to those. And then we do have a kind of what other company might call random act of happiness. We have rebranded it to random act of crappiness.
Of course.
So it's a little bit of that kind of pay it forward type sort of stuff, with the general understanding that whoever is speaking to that customer can find different ways to make their day. And listening to some of your other guests on here, it's not always appropriate to do those sorts of things. And it needs to be the right moment to do something as well. The example of sending a plant to someone who might have just thrown it in the bin. It doesn't always go to plan. So having that kind of nous and understanding that skill and expertise to go, I've got a moment here that I can actually do something really nice, is all three of those things. You need the right people. You need people to be good at what they do in those places. You need the company to stand behind it and it to be something that is celebrated, not an extra cost or just kind of a brand moment that you might say, oh, let's make this into a story that we can put in our socials. It's genuinely because we want it to be kind. And then the systems and process that we have behind it, it's less of a playbook, but more of kind of a theme that we use through our team, our customer happiness team, especially. How can we do things better? How can we make someone's day? Mm-hmm. There's a whole lot of different scenarios that we have that come through. So it's a little bit hard to write out a playbook or think about this when this happens, because we do want it to be genuine. We do want it to be fitting for that person.
No, I absolutely love this. So can you just like maybe from a more kind of like cynical point of view first, sort of like, why do these random acts of crappiness? I think like, what do they drive? Like if there was ever, obviously like right now you say like it's a culture of a company, you have a founder who is very much bought into it, right? So I'm assuming today you don't need to prove this, but let's say, at some point in the future, there was someone else or maybe like making those decisions, would it be possible to prove that like this is actually useful, or we don't know, but we believe that it's the right thing to do, and we just do it for this reason?
Yeah, can I prove anything good happened out of the end of it? No. Simple answer is no. That's not the point of it. It's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to turn it into some media moment that gets picked up and shared, and it's a brand moment again. So we don't track anything to do with this. It's genuinely just to kind of connect our team back to what we do, what we stand for as a company. It can be a little bit disconnecting at times, being in the customer support team or customer experience team at any company. A lot of the time you're dealing with problems. So that can get a little bit weighty at times, can get a little bit boring at times as well. So this is, there's a little bit of it which is about our team members' experience as well, and just getting to feel nice in what they're doing from time to time, having those little moments that they can get together as a team and say, this is amazing, look what I did for this customer. But coming back to what's the point for the business, it's to connect us back to what we're trying to do. And again, coming back to the values of the business and what we've been founded upon is to do good in the world, to choose. I guess companies can choose to make profits or to do things good in the world. There's moments that you can choose to be kind. And for us, these are the moments that we choose to be kind, just for the sake of it. There's no payback, there's no benefit, there's no tracking or anything to do with that. There's no referral codes that get stuff on the end of it. It's just to do good. It's just a really nice moment. It just kind of solidifies what we're trying to do as a whole company.
Yeah. I think this is one of those hard things about customer experience, is that like it's very hard to necessarily like pinpoint exactly how things work. But and the big problem is like it's all connected, because I think it's fairly straightforward to maybe prove that like generally the quality of customer experience, everyone complains about metrics like Net Promoter Score or things like that, and I have some stories myself, but generally we still believe that kind of, especially for businesses where a large portion of revenue comes from subscription, the quality of customer experience does very directly correlate to actual revenues, right? Your churn numbers, your kind of upsells and things like that, especially again in your case where like there's many different products. So you start maybe with toilet paper, but then you kind of potentially might want to buy doggy bags and all this kind of other stuff that you guys do now. So it is, I think, fairly well understood that the quality of customer experience does correlate to revenue in this case. But then how to build customer experience is very difficult, and part of it definitely is having the right team. And having the right team, you need to kind of keep them excited and feel like they are doing something amazing, right? And find the best people and retain them. And part of that is to give them creative opportunities like this, right? So nothing else, like even just thinking that way of how do we hire amazing people, retain them, and then they deliver amazing customer experience that contributes into our revenue already, probably more than pays off, because it doesn't usually actually cost that much money to do these random acts of crappiness.
Yeah, absolutely. For us as a company, it was relatively small. There was some time and effort that went into it, but that's it.
Of course,
essentially, if our customer had a nice day when the card turned up and some welcome gifts, that's amazing. If he then spoke to the staff that works there and told them the story, and maybe they purchased from us, even better. But that wasn't the point. It's a bonus for us in that perspective.
And Jordan, I wanted to shift gears to talk a little bit about, a second topic we discussed before the call, which actually, in my mind at least, kind of relates very closely to this. So, everyone in customer experience world today is talking about AI, right? It's kind of everyone is either deploying it or thinking about deploying it, or fighting against deploying it one way or another. How does I think first of all, you had some stories already, which maybe we can start with. But one topic I'm interested in is like, how do you maintain this attitude of these random acts of crappiness in the world of AI? Like, would AI be able to do these kind of things? I'm a huge proponent of AI generally, but I'm a little bit skeptical about that part.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a good reason to be skeptical. I think robots are robots. The end. The human side of robots. I think how I think about it, customers don't necessarily worry about the sincerity of an experience. When they have a problem, the main thing is fix the problem. If that's what is done at the end of this conversation, great. I can move on with the rest of my life. If a robot is trying to tell me a funny joke and it's just misplaced that in amongst my complaint, I'm not so happy. I'm not so forgiving. So I think in those contexts, humans make the world go round. We're not going to replace humans. Particularly in our business, humans are super important. One of our co-founders has said if it's a choice between a robot or a human, the human wins. It's kind of end of conversation. In saying that, though, the AI does have a place, and we are implementing different AI tools. They do serve as an important tool in our tool belt. They're not the whole thing, though. So I think what we're trying to do at the moment is find the right place for AI to come in. And it does kind of line up to that, the other anecdote that I had to bring, which is around how we can service our customers. So as we were mentioning before, we're in Australia, we're in the UK, in Europe, and the US as our big markets. Our support team is based in the APAC time zone. So our US and UK customers don't get that instant support that they probably want and what we want to give them. So AI and the use of chatbots and generative AI is becoming more important to us, and we're trying to figure out the right way of using it. We've had some trial and error previously. We've implemented a tool which wasn't quite right, didn't quite fit what we needed it to do after a lot of effort and a lot of hours spending to try to design the right thing. It just didn't work. It didn't work for our customers. And I think that comes back to, I guess, the saying of build it and they will come isn't necessarily always true. We built this tool that we thought was going to be great. It could do this, it could do that, make a cup of coffee in the meantime as well. And our customers just didn't come. They didn't come to it. They didn't want it. They didn't either know about it, they didn't trust it, or they didn't need it. And our customers were still coming through to us in our predominant channel of emails.
Jordan, this was like kind of like a chat support type solution, right? That you were trying to do. I caught something on the website that would kind of ideally instantly resolve the issues, as opposed to using using email or I guess phone.
Yes, correct. We were trying to be very intentional about what the chatbot would do, though. We didn't want it to interfere with those moments that we knew our customers would have always wanted to speak to a human about. So talking about a product complaint or an issue with their delivery, we know most of the time, it's very likely that a customer wants to speak to a human, even if it's just to kind of get that a little bit of a vent out, a little bit of frustration about something that didn't go right. The things that we were trying to solve for were the things that you don't necessarily need a human to speak to. You just want them done really quickly. So something like I need to change my shipping address, or I want to change from this product to that product on my subscription. We were trying to take care of those things and make them more like a one-click action for the customer rather than having to go through a series of steps. So picking and choosing what we were trying to get our customers to speak to it so that they could get those support that they needed in the time zone that they were in, without having to wait for a human to come back online and 24 hours have passed and no response.
Yeah, and so you were saying that the customers just weren't, like, it wasn't that it wasn't performing as expected. It was more that people just didn't need this, and they didn't actually care about this being resolved super quickly. They preferred it to be done kind of in a way that was comfortable to them.
So this is probably where the learning came in from us. It was We thought this was a pretty cool tool that we could use to solve a problem that we saw for our customers. And it's really simple. When we look back on it, it was one of those things where I guess we look at it as it was a failure. Ultimately, it failed to do what we needed to do, but we got a lot of learnings out of it. So within that failure, there was a lot of success because we found a better way of doing it, or kind of rethought how we were going to try to solve that problem. Our customers just didn't know it existed. Ultimately, we didn't get the volume of conversations going through the little chat widget that would pop up on the website. And when we looked back on it, we're like, of course. Most of our communication to our customers is through email. A lot of the EDMs, the billing reminders for subscriptions, tracking links, all of that sort of stuff goes through email. And then we were asking customers to go through a chat widget, which they didn't see. All of their interactions had been through the email. They were responding by email. Click reply, made it very easy for that reply to go back into email. And they were just skipping over the widget. They didn't know it existed. So it was a really cool tool. It was doing a whole lot of cool things. Just people didn't know about it or didn't need to go there, because the easier thing for them to do was just hit apply, type away, and send.
Awesome. And did anything kind of come out of this learning? Is there essentially a new approach in the works for you guys, or have you kind of given up for now?
This is rewinding probably 4 years ago when our AI tools, or everyone's AI tools, were relatively limited. I guess they're a little bit, for want of a better word, they're a bit dumb. We have recently switched to a different provider. So keeping that chat widget side of things, the chatbot will still be there if customers want to go through that channel, but it will also play into our email queue. So we will, again, be using that same sort of principle of handling the things that our customers just want really quick turnaround times on, the things that they don't necessarily need human interaction with. We have learnt a lot through the 7-ish years that I've been here. We do know what our customers want to speak to a human about. So we'll keep those protected. The things that we know need that more sensitive approach. But the things that are really quick and simple and we just need to get solved to let the customer move on with their life, the more important things in their life, that's where we're hoping we can really kind of shift the needle a little bit.
Fantastic, Jordan. I love this. So let's switch gears a little bit. We're almost out of time. So I'd love to take you into our very exciting hot take, customer experience hot take round. So I'm going to ask a series of questions, and then you can answer whether there's something short or expand a little bit at length. Just go with your gut. So what is customer experience trend that you think is totally overhyped?
So there's probably two, and I'll start with deliver and delight. I think this goes back to something that my previous boss has said to me, and it just replays in my head over and over. But there is no delight if you cannot deliver. If you buy a thing to do a thing, you just want it to do the thing. Simple. If you can't take care of that, if you let the customer down from what their expectation was to what you deliver upon, it doesn't matter if you've got a really cool brand or a nicely worded email that goes along with it. So I think the kind of trying to find those quick win or the sugar hit type things for a customer that you might get them to share on their social medias, those sorts of things, is a little bit of a trend that I'm not so keen on. There are moments where you can do it really well, but it needs to be done off the back of delivering upon what you need to deliver first and foremost.
Okay. Yeah. So this takes us back to this random acts of crappiness where, this does make sense, but I completely agree. Like, it needs to be on the back of, first of all, a very solid business. I was actually going to ask you when we were talking about this, about social media, and whether, when you especially kind of switch to retail and now have a lot of customers you maybe can't talk directly about, if I would imagine social media is not something where you go and sort of write about your toilet paper, but is that true or not?
Not so much on social media itself, but there's definitely other places, review websites and those sorts of things. We've got an amazing community team as well who handles our conversations through Meta and other places online, separate to our customer happiness team. So there's definitely conversations that happen on there. There's less of the conversations about this was my personal experience with your products. It might be a little bit more like, where's my delivery? Those sorts of things. The more, I guess, personal conversations happen on the DMs or through those email channels.
Right. Awesome. So our first overhyped trend was kind of delight without the delivery, if I understood correctly, right? And you said you had a second one.
Yeah. So I guess all of the things that I'm saying about AI being important to in our tool belt, it's a little bit contradictory for me to say AI now. But I think the trend or the way people speak about AI as being the solution, I think there's a definite need for caution in that sense. Something that we're really keen to preserve is that humanness to our service. If you don't get to speak to your customers, you won't know your customers. You won't know their experience. So having those things come through and just being dealt with an AI bot, some language model that spits out a response that thinks it's okay, you're still not really learning anything through those interactions. And some of those moments, going to Deliver and Delight, you need a human. You need a human to be reading and going, oh, I've got an idea here. I can do this differently, rather than just the wheels are turning through the machine and this is the appropriate response, cancel, move on to the next one. AI's got a really important place to play, part to play in our CX world going forward, but it's a part of the world. Yeah. It is not the entire world.
Yeah, no, I'm a little bit torn on this myself because, on the one hand, I work with a company. Of course, we're very passionate about this. And I think, for different brands, the story is a little bit different because, you guys have an amazing team. And, if I were to reach out with, let's say, an issue or a problem, I would definitely prefer one of your humans to talk to. But there is a lot of brands, unfortunately, in the world where, you talk to humans and you think like, oh, I wish I was talking to an AI, like some of the bigger banks. And I recently had an experience with an airline company that I was prefer this to be an AI rather than wait for an hour to get connected to someone and then that person kind of doesn't know exactly what's happening and is not empowered anyway to do anything. So there is a little bit of different worlds situation there.
I agree completely. There are very, very valid use cases for it. And if it's helping remove friction, those examples that you just shared, if it can remove friction, so be it. That's great. I just think it needs to be done in the right place at the right time for the right purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan, and my next question is like, what is a brand outside of Who Gives a Crap that you think is killing in customer experience, someone that you work out to?
So I'm a little bit biased because I'm obviously an Australian person here, but I really love Canva and what they do. Okay. I think this is where I come back to, if you buy a thing, you just want it to do the thing. And Canva, for me, does that thing really well. Being someone of very limited creativity, I can do a pretty good stick figure, but that's about it. Moving on to Canva and just kind of the world opens up for me for what I can do on that side of it. So coming back to that, just it is what it is, and it does it really, really well. Obviously, they're not a small company anymore. They're doing something right on that side of things. And yeah, extra points for being an Australian company.
Yeah, no, I love Canva. It's such a fantastic company and such an incredible success story. And I think I agree. Like the thing is, for me is same. Also, like not a very creative person, being able to do these things with sort of taste and quickly is pretty amazing. I don't know, Jordan, if you have maybe like some recent experiences yourself of like a good customer experience where you were really impressed with someone and maybe something that wasn't as good as you would hope.
This one is a little bit tricky. I've got a pretty high bar for a good customer experience.
I think everyone in the space does one or another.
Yeah, I think we see things a little bit differently. We kind of we're checking some boxes off as we go through an experience. I'm trying to think of a good experience.
Well, let's start with a bad one.
So I won't name the company, but I was trying to do some online study, and I'd signed up while it was fresh. I was all excited. I found a course that I thought that I might like to do and do some extra studying and get some credentials behind me. And I figured out that it just wasn't the right thing. I got a reminder that the billing was due and it had been taken. And I got in touch with them literally within 20 minutes of that billing going through. I hadn't actually done any of the learning. I hadn't opened the content, hadn't started anything. And the response that I got from the support team was basically too bad. And I thought that fair enough, I missed the billing. You were upfront about it. This is when it was going to happen, and I missed it. Within 10 minutes of the billing going through and basically being told, no, sorry, we can't do anything about that, I felt was a bit rough. Even just the wording of how the person responded to me, I felt was a little bit... it was probably a little bit too blunt for my liking. It was just more like, well, terms and conditions, too bad. Catch you later. I'm not responding to you anymore. think there's a way you could have handled that conversation a little bit better and maybe extended a little bit of empathy towards me. Sorry about that, but it's not happening. I felt a little bit more like a policy, more like a bot, I guess, in that interaction rather than a human. So yeah.
Jordan, thanks so much for being part of How to Help a Customer and sharing your insights. There's a lot to take away, I think, for people listening. And I really love the stories and learning more about this fascinating industry. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode of How to Help Customers, please subscribe, tell a friend, and join us next time for more stories that show the power of listening to your customers.